If you're a longtime viewer of my channel, then you would know that 3 years ago, for the intro for my review for Southpaw, I did this whole dramatic boxing thing, and I reused it months later for my review for the first Creed film. Well, history is repeating itself as I am not feeling that inspired to do something creative for the intro of this review, and I want an excuse to show it off again. So here is the intro for my Southpaw and Creed reviews in case you haven't seen it.
Ow! Why did I even try this?
What is up, everybody? RandomRandomMan here. Happy Thanksgiving to all of my American viewers watching. Hope you all are surrounded by your loved ones and enjoy a bunch of food. And sort of as my Thanksgiving gift to you all, I am here bringing you my review for Creed 2. Now, the plot of this sports drama basically follows a fight 33 years in the making as Adonis Creed, played by Michael B. Jordan, faces off against a new adversary, Victor Drago, played by Florian Montanu, who is the son of Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren, the powerful athlete who killed Adonis's father, Apollo Creed. Going into this movie, I went in with both anticipation and skepticism. When it comes to the Rocky franchise in general, I really enjoyed this film series, and when the franchise was given a soft reboot slash spin-off, not only did I end up loving this movie, but this became one of my favorite movies of that year and my favorite film in the series since the 1976 original Rocky film. So now that we have Creed 2, like I've said, I went in both optimistic and pessimistic because on the one hand, the Rocky fan in me did like the callbacks to the series past that the film was presenting, specifically in regards to Creed 2 almost being a sequel of sorts to Rocky 4, which, even though that movie is so cheesy and over the top, that's probably my favorite Rocky sequel, save for Creed, of course. And on the other hand, this movie was not being helmed by Ryan Coogler, who co-wrote and directed the previous Creed film. But the principal cast was returning for the sequel, and it did look like an entertaining film. Starting out with the cast and their performances, we have, of course, Michael B. Jordan returning in the title role of Adonis Creed. I thought he was excellent in the first film, and he's pretty much the same here in the sequel. Not only showing off the capable physicality of him being such a shredded boxer, but also giving a ton of emotion as well, especially since things are a lot more heated this time around. Sylvester Stallone as Rocky Balboa. He needs no introduction here. He's the guy who created this entire series, and the fact that he's been in every single one of these movies, whether or not they vary in quality, is a testament to how this guy is really dedicated to this character. And like Jordan, he is also fantastic here. I love the relationship between him and Jordan's Creed in the first film, and similar things do apply here, but also in the way of Rocky being very wary of Creed fighting Drago's son, as he, of course, fought Drago in the first film. There's also Tessa Thompson, who returns here as Bianca, the girlfriend to Adonis, and I loved her in the first film as well. Like the chemistry between Jordan and Stallone, I love the chemistry between Jordan and Thompson in the first film and here again. And I like how she is a character that was given more depth than the typical girlfriend type of character, in that she is passionate about music but suffers from progressive hearing loss. And I've mentioned this in my review for the first Creed film. I related a lot to her character because I am partially deaf myself. I use a Baha, or a bone-anchored hearing aid, and also with the advent of Bianca and Donnie having a kid and hearing loss possibly being hereditary, yeah, a lot more drama is presented. Speaking of that baby, on a bit of a side note, the daughter that Donnie and Bianca do have is so cute, so adorable. She stole a few moments here and there. Now we have the villains. Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren, returning to the franchise. Now, I thought that he was quite an imposing presence in the first film. Of course, he is huge and quite taller than Sylvester Stallone. And that fight in Rocky IV seemed impossible. But if you're at all a fan of this franchise, you know what happened there. And here, he is very reserved. And even though he is an imposing presence, he also seems calm as well, as he's more so concerned about his son facing off against Creed's son. And speaking of him, we have Florian Montanu, I believe I pronounced that name right, I apologize if I butchered it, as Victor Drago. Now, like his dad, man, he is huge in this movie, wow. And in real life, this guy is an actual fighter. His ring name is Big Nasty, and this is his film debut as well. And while he is not given the most amount of depth, he is a menacing presence, and I thought he did a fine job with the few lines he was given to speak here. And yeah, the physicality that he has against Jordan in the ring, oof. Then with the rest of the notable supporting players here, we have Wood Harris as Little Duke, the son to the trainer to Apollo Creed, and he was present very briefly in the first Creed film, but has more screen time here, and I like that he was given more to do. There's also Russell Hornsby, who I recently loved in his supporting turn in The Hate U Give, here as the guy responsible for bringing together Creed and Drago to have this really big fight. And then Felicia Rashad also reprises her role as Mary Ann Creed, the widow to Apollo and the adoptive mother to Adonis. And yeah, the screen time she was given here, I thought she did a very good job. Really, everybody here in this movie, I thought did some solid work performance-wise. The writing in this film, which was done by both Jewel Taylor and Sylvester Stallone, brings up the immediate conflict of the Dragos wanting to face off against the current reigning champion of boxing, Adonis Creed, which brings back up a lot of bad blood, as I've said before, between these individuals and Rocky Balboa. This concept does in turn create for a classic grudge match that we've seen in past boxing movies, and of course specifically within the Rocky franchise. That also makes for it to be pretty predictable in how the story is told. Now, this is not going to be that big of an issue for some, but for others it may be overbearing in that, yes, especially within this series, we've seen this kind of narrative play out in a very familiar sense and hitting all the specific beats that a movie like this would hit. But at the same time, too, the way this movie does carry out within how its narrative is told does make for something that still works. Though this narrative archetype isn't anything new, I have to give some credit to the script for trying to infuse some humanity to the Dragos as villains, as they have their own motivations and reasons to want to have Adonis fight Victor, for the intro and how their characters are clearly established, and also this one scene where Ivan does have a bit of a confrontation with Rocky in his restaurant that does, again, bring up some more bad blood. Speaking of scenes like those, the way they were handled directing-wise, I thought was very well done. The director of this film is Stephen Caple Jr., who Ryan Coogler apparently gave his blessing to direct this film. And in terms of how this guy is able to focus scenes, whether they are dramatic ones or the actual boxing scenes, I thought he did quite a solid job in not just establishing certain shots, but also really carrying the weight of the entire movie's narrative in a sense where I do still care about the core protagonists here, Donnie, Bianca, Rocky, but also to an extent the Dragos. In speaking more about the directing too, this goes into the action/boxing sequences. Now, I was, again, skeptical that Ryan Coogler wasn't returning to direct here, as one of the big reasons the first Creed was so great, in my opinion, was the way he was able to stage and frame the boxing sequences with a lot of tracking shots and long takes. But Stephen Caple Jr. here, I thought, did a pretty admirable job in his own style of directing with these boxing matches, as it is quite different in contrast to where it is obvious someone else is behind the camera. But the way these sequences were carried out, I still thought were very engrossing. The way they were shot was more in the style of it looking like a boxing match you would see on HBO or cable television, with different camera angles and cuts throughout, as opposed to, again, the long take style. The fights were brutal in any sense though, as yeah, again, Victor Drago is noticeably bigger than Donnie, and when we see them fight, just whoa. It is quite hard hitting, literally, to where the sound design does come into effect with a lot of moments within these fights. The sound design I have to give a shout out to, in that the hearing aids that Tessa Thompson's Bianca has in the film are used to where she is blocking out some of the sound in some areas, or we are viewing the film within her point of view. And also with the sound design as well, I saw this movie in a Dolby Cinema, so I felt every punch and blow that was delivered. Other technical merits here do include the music, very modern sounding. Tessa Thompson does sing quite a bit in this movie as well, and I think that she is a really superb singer. And also the way the movie looks overall too. You can tell that there was different direction behind the camera here, but at the same time, looking at it on its own, the way this movie was shot was above average for sure, in that scenes were very clearly shown, and just the way they were transitioning with the editing as well. Really, this is an overall well-made movie on a technical scale, and even though this movie doesn't really do that much new in regards to telling its story in comparison to the franchise's past, this is a film that I think will be a really big crowd pleaser. I think audiences that do go into this movie know what to expect when it comes to a movie like this, as it does hit all of the specific points that a movie like this does have to hit, and it does deliver in that regard. I saw this movie on opening day yesterday with a pretty interactive audience, so they were cheering often when a really pleasing moment did happen on screen, and there was also quite a bit of emotional reactions to some of the drama of the film as well. Overall, I think that Creed 2 is a solid sequel. In regards to the other films in the franchise, for comparison's sake, yeah, if I haven't made myself clear, I don't think this is as strong as the first Creed film, but in comparing it to the other Rocky sequels, I think this is one of the better entries within the series in terms of its directing, performances, and overall entertainment value. And also, to talk about this franchise's future briefly, without giving anything away, the way this movie ended, I thought ended quite nicely, and I'm not sure where the series could go if a third Creed film is warranted, but we'll just have to see. I personally thought this was a pretty good way to end the whole series. If you're a fan of this franchise, you've probably already seen it by now or are planning to see it very soon. I definitely recommend Creed 2. My final verdict for Creed 2 is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Creed 2, social media links in the description, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.